All right, we told you the government's coming for your car, and now they're coming for your news. I'm not kidding. A brand new investigation in the Washington Examiner explains how. Ahead of the 2024 election, the feds are working behind the scenes to demonetize successful conservative media organizations. Now, backed by the State Department, the National Endowment for Democracy is funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars, over $500,000 in just 2 years, to a group called the Global Disinformation Index, or GDI. Now, GDI has a dynamic exclusion list that it uses to pressure companies to cut ties with conservative websites that they claim are filled with disinformation. But this is just the beginning. Joining me now is the man behind this investigation, Gabe Kaminsky, investigative reporter for The Examiner, and Miranda Devine, New York Post columnist and Fox News contributor. Gabe, what else can you tell us about the government money that's going to this organization and how it's being used?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Laura. Our series in the Washington Examiner, Disinformation Inc., has unpacked how the United States government, specifically the State Department, has funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars through the Global Engagement Center, as well as the National Endowment for Democracy, which is heavily backed by the State Department, to an entity called the Global Disinformation Index, which is secretly compiling blacklists of conservative media outlets and feeding those to advertising companies with the intent of defunding and shutting down the free and independent press. And so our series has essentially linked taxpayer dollars to efforts to target the First Amendment.
Well, Miranda, the State Department has been the site of so much mischief, and that's to put it kindly, over the decades. I mean, since I worked for the Reagan administration, that's how long ago it goes back, State Department's been a problem. And now we have definitive evidence, do we not?
Yeah, we do, and fantastic reporting by Gabe and The Examiner. It's what we know anyway, but it's just seeing that the State Department, the government, is suppressing dissent, spending money on doing that, and doing it in the guise of stamping out disinformation. Disinformation is whatever the government decides it is, and that is dissent. Really, it's dissent. Anything that does not go along, parrot the democratic establishment line is deemed disinformation. And it's ironic, considering that the biggest disinformation that's come out of the media in recent history has been the Russia collusion hoax, and not one of those media outlets appears on this list. In fact, the New York Post does.
I was just going to say, you guys are on it. Yeah, you guys are on it.
Yes, and we're on it, the New York Post, because we published an accurate and factual story that has stood the test of time now, 2.5 years later, before the 2020 election, about the corruption of the Biden family as exposed on Hunter Biden's laptop. And that was deemed disinformation by the rest of the media that doesn't appear on this disinformation list, by social media, by the FBI, by Adam Schiff, by Joe Biden himself. None of that. That is actual disinformation designed to rig an election. None of that appears. No, it's the New York Post that appears on this bogus site because we refuse to parrot the establishment line.
Well, Gabe, we reached out to the National Endowment for Democracy. They told us that the grants given to GDI were very narrowly focused on an initiative to identify and combat the disinformation flowing from authoritarian regimes, particularly China. Well, that would be nice if that's what it was doing, and your response to that?
I think money is certainly fungible, and our reporting has not directly linked this State Department money directly to domestic attempts to fight disinformation. But First Amendment lawyers and members of Congress in and of itself have raised concerns over the fact that the government would fund an organization that is involved in this sort of domestic activity, even if the Global Disinformation Index is operating domestically and overseas to fight what they determine to be disinformation.
Well, Gabe, isn't it what you're trying to say, just so everyone understands, the money goes into a pot. So when you say it's fungible, right, if they're creating a blacklist. And Miranda, you know all about it. They're creating a blacklist. Don't advertise to these people. This website, that doctor whose blog, don't advertise. That is censorship. And that's being funded by this fungible pot of money that the State Department is doling out to these organizations. That's the scandal here. And it's only going to get worse before 2024. Gabe and Miranda, thank you.